Welcome to the Divine Drama channel, where we share and reimagine tales of love, ambition, rivalry, betrayal, and redemption between mythic gods, humans, and heroes of history. My name is Sasha, and I am pleased to be your guide and storyteller through a few of these videos. In today's Divine Drama video, we recount the deranged relationship between mother and the son-in-law from hell, in what some people would say a kidnapping gone right. Before we begin, let us know where you're watching this from and which heavenly drama we should cover next. And if you like the stories and the way we unpack all the dramatic juicy bits, make sure to subscribe and leave a like for the algorithm to show us love. If you are ready, let the drama unfold. You know, when it comes to family drama, the gods are basically running a 24/7 soap opera. But this story, this is where things go from petty squabbles to full-on apocalyptic chaos. It all starts with Persephone, Demeter's daughter. She's beautiful, kind, and radiates an innocence so pure it makes mortals stop mid-sacrifice to say, "Wow, she's too good for Olympus." Demeter, the goddess of agriculture and Persephone's fiercely protective mother, adores her. Persephone is her world, and that's why, when Hades shows up to abduct her, all Hades breaks loose, literally. Hades isn't your typical villain. He's not out here throwing tantrums like Poseidon or flexing like Zeus. He's the god of the underworld, which means he's all about quiet brooding and long stares into the abyss. But even Hades gets lonely. One day, he spots Persephone picking flowers in a meadow, her laughter filling the air like a Disney princess audition tape. Hades, smitten and completely ignoring the concept of boundaries, decides, "Yep, that's my queen." So what does he do? Does he woo her with poetry or serenades? Nope. He kidnaps her in a chariot drawn by immortal horses. Subtlety, never heard of her. Persephone screams, flowers scatter, and the earth itself trembles. Hades vanishes into the underworld, leaving behind a gaping chasm and a meadow that now looks like a war zone. When Demeter realizes Persephone is missing, she goes from calm, nurturing goddess to full-on "where's my child" mode. She searches everywhere, mountains, rivers, forests, calling out Persephone's name like she just lost her in a department store. Mortals who rely on Demeter to keep their crops growing start panicking. The fields go barren, the rivers dry up, and everyone's like, did we forget to leave a good enough offering this year? But Demeter doesn't care about the mortals. She's too consumed by her grief. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and the earth itself begins to wither. By now, the mortal world is in shambles. Farmers are standing in their dead fields like this is fine, while kings are writing angry letters to Zeus. Even the gods are feeling the heat, or rather, the chill. Zeus, sitting on his throne and probably enjoying a golden goblet of ambrosia, looks down at the chaos and finally realizes, oh, maybe I should do something. He calls for Demeter, who shows up looking like a goddess straight out of a revenge movie. Her hair disheveled, her eyes blazing, and the air around her crackling with barely contained fury. Demeter storms into Zeus's palace, and let me tell you, she does not knock. She slams the doors open, her presence sending lesser gods scurrying for cover. "Where is my daughter?" Demeter asks. Zeus, doing his best not to look guilty, stammers, funny story. You see, Hades kind of, took her?" Demeter's glare could probably wilt 1,000 fields. "Took her? And you did nothing?" Zeus raises his hands defensively. "Look, It's not like he asked for permission, okay? I'll send Hermes to sort it out. Demeter doesn't buy it. She leans in, her voice low and deadly. Fix this, Zeus, or I'll let the mortals starve until they start sacrificing you. Hermes, ever the reluctant errand boy, is sent to the underworld to negotiate. He shows up with his winged sandals and his "let's just get through this" attitude, only to find Persephone sitting on a throne next to Hades. She looks different, less Disney princess, more gothic queen, but there's a sadness in her eyes, a longing for the sunlight she hasn't seen since she was taken. Hermes delivers Zeus's message, but Hades isn't impressed. "She's my queen now," he says. His voice is calm and final as a tombstone. Hermes sighs. "Okay, but here's the thing. Demeter's threatening to turn the earth into a giant wasteland, and nobody wants that. Can we, negotiate?" As Hermes and Hades argue, Persephone quietly reveals the kicker. She's eaten 6 pomegranate seeds. Now for mortals, eating fruit is no big deal. But in the underworld, it's binding. Those seeds have tied her to Hades' realm forever. When Hermes hears this, he mutters, "Oh, Zeus is gonna love this one." Back on Olympus, Demeter is gearing up for her next confrontation. Hades is smugly holding his ground, and Persephone is caught between 2 worlds. The stage is set for a showdown of cosmic proportions. The world is falling apart. Mortals are starving. Temples are abandoned. And Zeus is feeling the pressure. Demeter's grief has turned the earth into a barren wasteland, and every time someone prays for rain or crops, it's met with silence. The gods, usually unbothered by mortal problems, are now getting restless. After all, fewer mortals mean fewer sacrifices, and no one on Olympus likes an empty offering plate. Zeus, ever the reluctant problem solver, realizes this situation has gone from "Hades did a thing" to the entire world might collapse. And so, he summons the big players, Hades, Demeter, and Persephone, for a divine family meeting. The air in Zeus's palace is thick with tension as the gods assemble. Demeter enters first, her presence radiating power and anger. Her once vibrant green robes now seem muted, like a dying field. She doesn't take a seat. She doesn't even acknowledge the other gods. Her eyes are locked on Hades, who strolls in next, calm as ever. His dark cloak billows behind him, and his expression says, "I'd rather be anywhere else." Finally, Persephone arrives, escorted by Hermes. She looks regal, but conflicted, her luminous beauty now tinged with an underworld shadow. The room falls silent as Zeus stands, trying to channel his "I'm the king of the gods, so let's settle this energy." "All right," Zeus says, his voice booming. "Let's resolve this before we end up with a world full of angry mortals and no one left to worship us. Hades, what were you thinking?" Hades shrugs. "I wanted the queen. She's perfect. I acted." Demeter's voice cuts through the room like a scythe. "You abducted my daughter. She's not a prize for you to take." Hades counters. "She's not a child anymore, Demeter. She's grown into her role as queen of the underworld." Zeus raises a hand to stop the argument. All right. Let's hear from Persephone. Persephone, what do you want?" For the first time, Persephone steps forward. Her voice is steady, but carries the weight of someone who's been torn between 2 worlds. "I didn't choose this," she begins, her gaze flickering between her mother and Hades. "But the underworld isn't what I thought it would be. It's dark, yes, but it's also necessary. I've seen things no mortal or god could understand. I'm not the same person who picked flowers in a meadow. Demeter's eyes well up with tears. Persephone, you belong with me, on the surface, where you're safe, where you're loved. Persephone's voice softens. I love you, mother, but I've eaten the pomegranate seeds. Part of me belongs there now. The room falls silent, the gods exchanging uneasy glances. Zeus rubs his temples like a father at the end of a long road trip. Great, just great. So we're stuck with a cursed fruit situation. Fantastic. Finally, Zeus does something completely out of character. He mediates. Here's how it's going to work, he announces. Persephone will split her time between the underworld and the surface. For part of the year, she'll live with Hades as queen of the underworld. For the rest, she'll return to Demeter and bring life back to the earth. Demeter, visibly struggling, starts to protest, but stops when she sees the resolve in Persephone's eyes. Hades, for his part, simply nods. Fair, he says, though his tone suggests he thinks he's still getting the better deal. As the agreement is sealed, the effects are immediate. Persephone ascends to the surface, and Demeter's joy transforms the earth. Flowers bloom, fields burst with life, and mortals rejoice as spring and summer return. But when Persephone returns to the underworld for her time with Hades, the world changes again. The air grows colder, the leaves fall, and the earth becomes barren. Thus, the seasons are born, spring and summer for life and abundance, fall and winter for dormancy and waiting. Hades and Persephone settle into their unusual relationship. Persephone, now a queen in her own right, rules with a quiet strength that even Hades respects. And while their union might have started with an abduction, it evolves into something complicated. Love, maybe. Mutual respect, definitely. Therapy worthy, absolutely. Hades smirks one day as Persephone tends to a garden she's created in the underworld. You're starting to make this place look less underworldly, he says. Persephone doesn't look up. Maybe you needed a little light down here. On the surface, Demeter learns to accept the new arrangement. It's not easy. No mother wants to share her child with the god of death. But every spring, when Persephone returns, the earth bursts into life, and Demeter feels whole again, even if only for a while. She tells the mortals, the seasons reflect her journey. When she's with me, the world thrives. When she's below, we mourn. But in mourning, we prepare for her return. And so the cycle continues. And so the fight for Persephone ends, not with a thunderbolt or a battle, but with compromise. The takeaway: life is messy, relationships are complicated, and sometimes the best you can do is meet in the middle, even if that middle involves cursed fruit and a part-time underworld residency. But let's be real. The real lesson here: don't eat random fruit just because someone offers it to you, especially if that someone is the god of the dead. As the seasons turn, mortals celebrate the cycle of life and death, and the gods go back to their usual chaos. But Persephone, she remains the bridge between two worlds, a queen of both life and death. The compromise between Demeter and Hades might have brought balance to the cosmos, but let's not kid ourselves. This family drama is still as messy as a mortal trying to explain taxes. The seasons are in place, the mortals are happy, or at least not starving, and Zeus is patting himself on the back for doing the absolute minimum. But behind the scenes, there's still tension. Persephone's life is now a tale of two worlds. On the surface, she's Demeter's beloved daughter, bringing spring flowers and sunshine wherever she goes. Mortals sing her praises, and Demeter treats her like she's just returned from a semester abroad. Look at her! Demeter beams at the mortals, showing off Persephone like a trophy. Isn't she radiant? My beautiful girl, back where she belongs. But below the surface, Persephone is a queen. The underworld bends to her will. She's no longer the naive maiden picking flowers. She's a ruler, a force to be reckoned with. Even Hades, the original brooding loner, defers to her decisions. One day, while overseeing a judgment in the underworld, Hades mutters, "I'm starting to think you're better at this than I am." Persephone smirks. Maybe. But don't worry, you're still good at brooding. For Demeter, the months without Persephone are still hard. She tries to focus on her work, making sure the mortals don't completely starve during the winter, but her heart aches every time the leaves fall. Time apart makes the reunion sweeter. Zeus offers one day, trying to cheer her up. Demeter glares at him, her voice icy. You would know, wouldn't you? Considering how often you disappear on your family. Zeus, realizing he's stepped into dangerous territory, retreats with a muttered, "Good talk." Meanwhile, the mortals are doing what mortals do best, adapting. They celebrate the return of Persephone each spring with festivals, dances, and sacrifices to Demeter. During the winter months, they hunker down, tell stories by the fire, and blame their bad moods on the gods. Why is it so cold? One farmer grumbles to another. Demeter's sad. The other replies, her daughter's in the underworld again. The first farmer sighs, I get it. My mother-in-law visits every winter too. As the years pass, the relationship between Demeter, Hades, and Persephone settles into something resembling, if not peace, then at least coexistence. Demeter still shoots daggers at Hades whenever they cross paths, but she can't deny that Persephone has grown into a powerful and confident ruler. One spring, as Persephone ascends to the surface, Demeter hugs her tightly and whispers, "You've become so much more than I ever imagined. I just wish it didn't have to be like this." Persephone smiles softly. "I know, mother, but this is who I am now, queen of two worlds, and maybe that's not so bad." Back in the underworld, Hades watches Persephone's garden bloom in her absence. He sits in the quiet, his dark throne feeling heavier without her presence. For all his power, he knows she doesn't belong to him, not entirely. She's like the seasons themselves, he muses to himself, always shifting, always moving, never truly mine. But even Hades, the god of death, respects that, because deep down he knows that trying to hold on too tightly only leads to more chaos. And so, the story of Demeter, Hades, and Persephone becomes a timeless reminder of compromise and balance. Life isn't about getting everything you want, it's about learning to live with what you can't change. But let's not sugarcoat it. This story also teaches us a couple of very practical lessons. First, don't trust a guy with a chariot and a penchant for lurking in the shadows. Second, if someone offers you fruit in a suspicious setting, maybe say no. Ultimately, the seasons are more than just weather patterns. They're a reflection of life itself. Growth, loss, renewal, it's all part of the cycle. And if even gods have to learn to let go, maybe there's hope for the rest of us. As Persephone returns to the surface once more, the earth bursts into bloom, and Demeter smiles for the first time in months. In the underworld, Hades watches her leave, the faintest hint of a smile on his lips. And in the mortal world, farmers rejoice, poets sing, and one old man looks at his neighbor and says, "I told you spring would come back. You owe me a goat."